we will work on entity framework for this specific application, library
Mm.
management,
Mm.
and we will be looking a lot of concepts of delegates and lambda expression, link
Mm.
queue,
Mm.
and the entity framework specific, task and applications that eager
Mm.
loading, relationship, and lot. But the
Mm.
one thing that you'll notice throughout this whole application, I won't be touching a single SQL query.
Mm.
I will never write a stored proc. I will never even create table. I will
Mm.
never insert them.
Mm.
Everything
Mm.
I do is by C sharp.
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
That's like the takeaway from entity framework. And
Mm.
it works beautifully if you connect it in right manner.
Mm.
If you
Once you
know how,
started to using the entity framework, I think people don't want to go back to the
yeah,
this old.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, you'll see right now that when I create
Mm.
this application, you'll feel
Mm.
like, why would I ever write stored proc?
Mm.
But the thing is, the application that I'm showing you right now is very trivial and easy to create.
Mm.
But once
Mm.
you work in a very big environment where the
Mm.
application is very complicated, then
Mm.
people generally don't prefer entity framework.
Mm.
But
Mm.
imagine you have a task, you want to do a small POC,
Mm.
a small proof of concept that I want, that whether this thing is going to work or not. And
Mm.
in that case, why would I focus on database when I just want to test an application, a small application?
Mm.
In such scenarios, entity framework works really well
Mm.
because you
Mm.
don't waste your time in creating backends. You just create your models and then
Mm.
everything will work fine.
Yeah. Mm.
So that way, entity framework is going to work best. So
Mm.
the thing is about entity framework is it's a different framework altogether. It doesn't, there's no template as such to create entity framework in your project.
Mm.
So we have to go through installation, configuration, DB context, and a lot of things. But
Mm.
it's pretty neat, and via NuGet framework, you can connect to everything.
Mm.
So first, before starting this entity framework thing, let's see what we want to create.
Mm.
So we want to create a library management. So that,
Mm.
that means I will be having some book management thing. I'll be adding, creating, reading, updating, and deleting books.
Mm.
I will
Mm.
definitely have a customer management
Mm.
where I will be adding, creating, deleting, and updating customers.
Mm.
And I will have a borrowing management in which that a customer can, borrow multiple books.
Mm.
So there's a borrow, there's a return thing,
Mm.
and multiple customers cannot borrow same book. That's like two constraints.
Mm.
So
Mm.
for me, I can borrow multiple books, but multiple customers cannot borrow the same book. So once book is
Yeah.
borrowed, you
Yeah.
can't really borrow it again.
Mm.
That's simple basic constraint.
Mm.
And here you can see a lot of foreign keys happening here.
Mm.
So the way we design application, we first list out those tasks. So you can see this, take this as a requirement configuration or requirement document.
Mm.
This is what I want from a task. And then
Mm.
eventually we have to first think of a backend before
Mm.
even designing an application.
Mm.
So right now I'll show you a ER diagram of the application. Generally we have ER diagrams,
Mm.
entity relationship diagram, and
Mm.
every table that you see here, these are three tables from a
Mm.
database side. From
Mm.
an entity framework side, these are three entities.
Mm.
So every table can be called as an entity.
Mm.
So that's why it's called entity framework. We have multiple entities, and every entity represents a complete thing altogether.
Mm.
So it's a match. So like whenever when I say a book as an entity, it will have a book table somewhere in database. And
Mm.
I'll say customer identity will have customer table, and similarly borrow history will have a borrow history table.
Yeah. Mm.
And this book table, you can see this is just book ID. You can think of this as a primary key, and we have a
Mm.
title, we have serial number, we have author, we have publisher. And again,
Mm.
author and publisher right now is just character. You can think of having these as a new entities
Mm.
where author will have corresponding author name, author date of birth, and everything. Publisher will have its publisher name, publisher address. But
Mm.
we are not making it that complicated right now.
Mm.
We will have just author name, publisher name.
Mm.
Similarly, we have customers. We have customer name, address, contact. And this book ID and customer ID is the link we have in the borrow history. So
Mm.
whenever somebody borrows a book, so it'll be a customer who's going to borrow a book. So it's similar to what we saw in the phone book application, a user ID and contact ID
Mm.
mapping. So you
Yeah.
can imagine this book ID and customer ID being a foreign key here.
Mm.
I can't have this map unless I have this book ID and customer ID in my database.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's
Mm.
one to star matching. That means for every one customer, there could be like multiple customers connection here. And for
Mm.
every book, there would be multiple books. But the matching is in this way that a single customer cannot have multiple. Like if a book is borrowed already, I can't
Mm.
really borrow it again
Mm.
because it has been issued to someone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then borrow date and return date, we will use return date to figure out whether the book is being borrowed or not. Because
Mm.
if somebody borrows a book, it will have a borrow date, but it won't have any return date.
Mm.
And once the book is being returned to my library, then I will have a return date.
Yeah. Mm.
So you can think of this
Mm.
column allows a null thing, and this column doesn't really allow a null thing.
Mm.
So that's like a whole entity thing, and throughout this application will be. Oh, there's a wrong connection. Oh, just like a tool I'm using.
Mm.
It's something like there's a lot of tools out there. I'm using this simple one. So we'll be creating these three entities and working throughout this application with these entities.
What is the name
And
of this tool?
this is DB Diagram.io. It's just
Ah,
website. You
okay,
can
okay.
free. You can create free DB diagrams here.
Mm, mm, mm,
And you will be seeing that throughout these entities that I'm exploring, I won't be dealing with database at all.
mm.
My whole application will be running using
Sure,
entity
sure.
framework.
Yeah.
So now this is a whole new setup. We are
Mm,
moving from phone book. We are
mm,
at a new application. We will be looking at a new kind of constraints.
mm,
And throughout this application, I'll be explaining a few, like a lot of concepts of
mm,
delegate, C sharp, eager management code first and everything,
mm,
which is enough to, your kickstart an entity framework. It won't be like in very advanced concepts,
mm.
but if you want a starter entity framework application, you can start using these concepts.
Okay.
It's enough for you to have the idea of entity framework.
Mm,
And when you actually start working on it, you realize that, oh, I need to do this also.
mm,
Then what you do is you go to Microsoft documentation and see whether how Microsoft is allowing me to do that or not.
mm,
So it's like it's a whole new zone, entity framework. There's so many things you can do here. But
mm.
what I'm going to use right now is to just create this particular task. For me,
Yeah.
whatever I need for this task, I can do that.
Mm,
But depending upon your task, you might need new things.
mm,
But
mm.
then you need to explore with entity framework.
Yeah.
That's
Mm,
how the framework works. You can't really
mm,
learn it in a one go. You have to explore and explore to learn new
mm,
things.
mm,
So as you can see, I won't be going through SSMS.
mm,
So this is something that I'll show you how tables are created, but I won't be using a SQL query at all.
mm,
So first, let's start with creating a new application. And I will be using ASP.MVC only
mm.
because that's something that we are working upon.
Yeah.
And Entity Framework works pretty well with MVC. It
Mm,
won't work very nice with a single page application.
mm, mm,
It can, it's possible to
mm,
work it out, but the thing
mm,
is the model and view concept doesn't really apply in single page application.
mm, mm,
So you still have models, you still can fill them out, but
mm.
it's like it's a little bit different if you think about creating those applications, but people still use them. Like single page application can be used with Entity Framework because Entity Framework doesn't rely on MVC at all.
Mm, mm.
It just want classes, right? And
Yeah.
you can have classes in any project.
Mm,
So it doesn't really
mm.
care whether you're single page application or you're building a web API. It doesn't care at all. It just
Oh,
Entity Framework looks pretty nice with MVC, but there's
mm,
nothing stopping it from using it to any, even for console application. Nothing is stopping it.
mm.
You can use that because it
Okay.
doesn't rely on those razor views and view engine and all.
Yeah.
It's just at the
Mm,
model part.
mm.
So I'm going to create a new project and I'll
Okay.
be pushing this project to Git so that you can have this reference.
Yeah, yeah. It's.
And I'll be creating same web application. Nothing new. There's no such thing as
Mm,
entity framework application.
mm,
You will be still working on a web application, and Max doesn't really provide you that templating thing. It
mm.
helps. You can kickstart your application the way you want, but then you can add entity framework on top of it.
Yeah. Mm,
So I'll say library management UI, and that's the same thing that we used to
mm,
work on. I want to work on C sharp, so that's
mm,
that's the same thing. And I will be working on MVC. I won't work on these. I don't want
mm,
an HTTPS and MVC. Authentication not needed. So let's just create this application. So this is the part that now you're familiar with. You know
mm,
how MVC application works. So you know that by scaffolding, it's going to create those all models, those folders, those controllers, those route to start my application. So I
mm.
will have that basic application up and running using this scaffolding. So that's the idea. There's a tool. That's the IDE, provides you those concepts.
Yeah.
If imagine you don't have a Visual Studio, then it's very difficult for you to work on C Sharp and .NET.
Mm,
The reason why community is so strong in C Sharp .NET because we have this Visual Studio as a very like amazing tool. It's like one of the best.
mm.
Even for different language like Python and Java, there's no such as mature tool as Visual Studio.
Oh, okay.
Visual
Mm,
Studio is like one of the mature like best tool ever for a particular language. Therefore, this Visual Studio now provides supports of Python also.
mm,
You can
mm,
create Python, JavaScript, Node.js applications in Visual Studio because it's like really nice tool.
mm,
People really go with that. And so once this project is created, so we have to first start, like I gave him the basic idea of entity framework.
Mm.
I will first start with installation.
Mm.
Before installation, I'll first create this model,
Mm.
right? This
Yeah.
is a simple model. It doesn't really matter if you have a
Mm.
visual entity framework or not.
Mm.
So let's just run this application once so that let's see if everything is running.
Yeah.
And you'll be seeing a basic ASP.NET page with
Yeah. Mm.
basic those
Mm.
tabs. That's
Mm.
up and running for you. So you
Mm.
don't have to really worry about those configurations when you
Mm.
create this .NET MVC application, which is really nice. I have few things up and running for me, and I can just kickstart my application from here.
Mm.
So let's just see if everything's working nice. And about this whole application, you'll be seeing that I won't be giving you much of the homework
Mm.
because all the concepts are new. So
Mm.
if I want you to try them out, it'll be
Mm.
difficult for you to execute those codes.
Mm.
So you'll be more going around actually implementing the same application again
Mm.
because everything is new for you here.
Yeah.
Even if I want to do some kind of update operation, that's also a new kind of concept because I'm not
Mm.
working on stored proc.
Mm.
Previously, it was easy for you because you were coming from console to UI.
Mm.
Now you're going to a whole new framework, so everything is new.
Yeah. Mm.
Whichever thing is like repeatable, I'm going to give you that like this.
Mm.
Otherwise, you can think of creating this whole application again and again using my sessions.
Mm.
That is
Yeah.
also a good practice because if you try things again,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
start getting why I did
Mm.
what.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So our application is running basics. That's nice. Let's just close that. And see the models folder is always empty. You can
Mm.
imagine why because there's no scaffolding as such to create a model for you, right?
Mm.
There's nothing out there which can create some model for you. But if you like add an authentication, like you remember that authentication thing, I was using no authentication.
Mm. Yeah.
If I
Mm.
made it an authentication enabled
Mm.
application, then I'll see few user account models created for me.
Okay. Mm.
Otherwise, these models generally empty.
Mm. Mm.
So now just let's create these models. This like first start, and you can see that there's no need for entity framework to create model, right?
Mm.
I don't really need to install entity framework to create my model.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that this is a book,
Mm.
and the class that I'm marking, like writing
Mm.
here, you'll see the exact table name created in the
Mm.
database. That's where the
Mm.
matching things is now going to happen for you.
Yeah.
So whatever class that I have a corresponding table inside my
Mm.
database.
Mm.
So you can see I'll be creating a book ID title. So same thing. So public int book ID,
Pretty. Mm.
then public string title, then public string. And now see, from a developer perspective, I am not worried about varchar
Mm.
or
Mm.
int direction or whatever that structure database has.
Mm.
Something is I know something is on out there will handle it for me.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
will have author, so that it is that kind of thing that Entity Framework provides you.
Yeah.
That you don't worry about database, just make your models right, and I'll handle
Mm.
it for you.
Ah.
And
Publisher.
and publisher.
Mm.
I'm not putting any vanilla, things here. I'm just using a basic concept,
Mm.
right? There's nothing new happening here.
Mm.
And similarly, I can create a model for customer. Let's just do that, then we can start installing Entity
Mm.
Framework. And I will have public
You
int
can do
cus-
the props, props then.
Yeah, this is
Mm.
shortcut, right? Props
Mm.
one. Yeah, I'm just writing
Yeah.
out so that see those all the shortcuts start helping you out when you start working a lot. But I just want
Mm.
to make sure the syntax working the way they should. So that's therefore
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just showing you in that direction.
Mm.
String address and contact. And contact. That's fine. I
Mm.
have four.
Custom.
So basically, I've created these two entities. I have created that. I've
Mm.
just defined the varchar basis, and so that's all string.
Mm.
And you can imagine that me getting this ER diagram might be I might be getting this diagram from a business analyst or some other guy, or
Mm.
maybe you saw the application and you saw all these tasks, then you said, okay, I will have these tables
Mm.
to handle it. So
Yeah.
you can create
Yeah.
first this, then you
Mm.
create the model. And what I'm doing right now, it's called code first approach. So
Mm.
basically, Entity Framework provides you three kind of way. You can use model first, you can use database first, you can use code first. So if you're
Mm.
using database first application, then kind of approach, then you first you create tables. So
Mm.
they'll be like you start creating table at the backend. Maybe
Mm.
basically that table is created at the C# side only, but slightly you start with tables first.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
But the approach I'm using right now is called code first. I'll be going through the code and everything will
Uh,
be done for me.
mm.
And it's the most most used approach for entity framework.
Okay.
But
Mm.
sometimes people want very extreme reliability from a database side also, they go for database first approach.
Mm.
So
Mm.
those are the two approach you'll be hearing a lot from our
Mm.
entity framework side. But
Mm.
code first is widely used because it's basically for people who don't want to work on database.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, now you can see there's no such library as such for entity framework added to me.
Mm.
And I can like think about adding via reference, but there's
Mm.
a very nice way, even nicer way to do this sometime, because
Mm.
you might not have those DLLs in your PC. So then you
Mm.
have to install it from somewhere. So what
Mm.
Microsoft does is it provides a way to add those libraries using NuGet Package Manager.
Mm.
So if you go to tools, NuGet Package Manager,
Mm.
you can just manage NuGet packages for solution. So it's a whole library. It's
Mm.
similar to like a library outside for you.
Oh, 1 second there. So in this case, if you have different project in your application, if you add this NuGet package, it will get into all the project or only this
No, no,
particular
no.
project?
It'll decide once you start installing. Because
Mm.
I'm only having a single project, so
Uh,
it won't really ask me. But if you have multiple projects,
mm.
it will ask you where you want to install, and that's very
Oh,
important. Because
okay.
otherwise it won't install into all the applications, because sometimes your other part of application is just a DLL, right? It
Mm.
might be a class library. Why would you install that package to a class library?
Mm.
So it will just ask. Otherwise, sometimes it knows, because it know that those are class libraries. I want to add this package to a UI, so it will directly add to UI, but will
Mm.
definitely give you some kind of hint that you're adding it here. You want to change, you can change it right now.
Oh, okay.
So
Mm.
you'll see that when I'm
Mm.
click install button. So
Mm.
right now I'm using a package called nugot.org. It's like a open source library. It's like a
Mm.
library out there
Mm.
where all these packages are being imported,
Yeah.
and I can just search for entity framework, browse. So you see there are core,
Mm.
relational, abstraction, a lot of packages, entity framework, but I want to install it all like all in one go. So that's entity
Mm.
framework EF6. And see, when I
Mm.
click on it, it asks me where you want to install. So
Mm.
I select
Ah.
I want a library kind
Yeah.
of UI.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll be have like all those lists out here in the projects. You can
Mm.
select those that I want to install in these,
Mm.
and it will automatically install the latest build. It will provide you multiple versions also, but
Mm.
obviously you'll go with the latest one right now.
Mm.
And it says that I will be adding these dependencies. I need these dependencies. So sometimes what happens is these are not added for me, right?
Mm.
If they're not added or not provided, it will automatically install those also.
Okay.
So
Ah.
it will handle everything it needs to work. So
Mm.
I'll just
Mm.
click on install.
Mm.
And what it gonna does is it's gonna go to like PC, and so there's a license acceptance. It'll go to the server, download those packages, and unpack them and put in my adding. You see they start adding automatically.
Mm.
Now I have entity framework, and everything is installed. So I should be seeing like in my package, in my error list, I'm not seeing any kind of error,
Mm.
and output everything is finished. And say
Yeah.
it's successfully installed to this, so that means everything is done for me.
Mm.
So now I can just
Mm.
close this NuGet, and it's as easy.
Yeah.
I've just
Mm.
installed Entity Framework in my application. I
Mm.
can just start a rebuild. It should be rebuilding now. It shouldn't break in any way,
Mm.
because it will start breaking if I'm not having those dependencies with me, because NuGet handles everything. So it automatically
Mm.
and adds those dependencies also. So my Entity Framework applications, there you see there's something called Alder runtime. It was not previously there,
Mm.
but because Entity Framework requires it to run, so it automatically adds it in my project.
Yeah.
So everything is added now. So everything is ready for me to run the Entity Framework.
Mm.
Now I have to start using these, entities, so that I can push it inside the database. So you can think that I will be adding somewhere a connection string.
Yeah.
There has to be a way by which I can tell entity framework that I need to, you need to use this kind of database. So that connection
Mm.
is still there, but
Mm.
I won't be writing queries.
Mm.
So in order to avoid that, so I'll just, create a new folder, because I'm dealing with DAL now
Mm.
in my own application. So I'll just say just like a convention. It doesn't matter. You can name it anything, but
Mm.
I'm just making a DAL so that it's clear that I'm using a DAL
Yeah.
layer.
Mm.
And what I'll do is I'll deal with a class which I'll call it library. You can name it anything. I'm calling
Mm.
library DB context, because how we deal with the database, the whole database entity framework is using a DB context.
Mm.
So therefore, I'm naming it a library DB context, and I'll show you why. And inside this, I'll derive it from a DB context class. It's not coming, but as soon as I write it, I put a control dot. So it should give me some suggestion. You see, using system data entity. This
Oh.
class, this library is provided by entity framework.
Mm.
So
Okay.
if I put to F12,
Mm.
if I go to this and if I press F12, you can go to a, how library is defined, how this class is defined. You see the namespace is system data entity and the assembly
Mm.
is entity framework.
Yeah.
So this class is not given to you before. It
Mm.
is not available to me because I want to work with entity framework. And
Mm.
you can't use this without unless you have installed entity framework. So
Mm.
that's where the installation part really enters. And
Mm.
why DB context? Because I want to provide a way by which my application can handle, all the database operations.
Mm.
So there has to be a class which is handling it for you. So it's like a DAL layer. We previously get a DAL layer, right, for stored
Yeah.
proc.
Yeah.
Now we
Yeah.
are creating a DAL layer to deal
Mm.
with entity framework.
Mm.
And this is a context that's given to us. Like this is a class by which I can use entity framework functions.
Mm.
So first I derive it with this. So when I do that, I will be, let's create a constructor. Fine. Library DB context. And I will be calling the base
Mm.
constructor, the DB context. So if you look at this
Mm.
F12 again, it has a DB context. This is
Mm.
constructor, right?
Yeah.
See, all
Yeah.
these are constructors. Now
Mm.
there's a blank one, and there
Mm.
are some multiple way by which I can initialize the class.
Mm.
I can provide a connection string with a DP, some model connection string, bool, something, something, something. I'll be
Mm.
using this constructor, and you can
Okay.
see this is the way it won't show me. So when I go to F12 of any class, it won't show me the code inside
Mm.
it.
Mm.
That's hidden for me. It will just
Mm.
show me that all those functions that I can use of this
Mm.
class. So if you look at your connection that class library that you created,
Mm.
if you would have done F12 on your class library, then you would exactly see it like this.
Mm.
That's the
Yeah.
way. If I just show you, maybe if I can show you here, if I'm using it somewhere, I must be using it somewhere. So in the controllers, maybe in the home, is this library management? No, not this one. Because it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we created. So we were
Mm.
using this Dell manager, right? So
Mm.
if I do F12 in that, so right now it's opening for me because I'm using the project.
Mm.
Imagine me using this library from outside.
Okay.
If I given you this library as a DLL to you and you are
Uh,
importing it, then you won't be seeing it like this, like your
oh.
code. You won't see the code.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
so it'll be a little bit tricky. Let me just try if I can show you this. So this is present where. Let me just try, connecting and showing it to you what I'm trying to say. So this is here, right? This is at repos, this folder.
Mm.
So let me just add and show you what I'm trying to say. Let me just add the reference. So I can browse that DLL. When I'm browsing it, I have to go to that folder where the DLL is found. This time you can see I can't connect it via project because it's not present in my project.
Mm.
I have to go somewhere, provide that
Oh.
path.
Yeah.
Previously, we were able to do that because that was, provided in your project. Now you don't have in your project. So it's present somewhere in your particular, somewhere present in your folder or somebody might have given to you. So let me,
So each day I need to take it from there.
no,
Oh.
I'm just showing you,
Sure.
we don't
Where
need
it
that,
is.
right?
Mm.
We don't need that because we won't be working with DAL layer.
Mm.
But later on when we are working in some other project, we might need
So
to.
yeah, because sometimes it is showing that your add reference is missing, assembly or reference missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that case, you have to add, because see, if it's inside your project, then you can just add the reference.
Mm.
But right now it's not inside my project. I'm working on a new project, right?
Yeah.
So I have
Mm.
to get that DLL because I can't connect the project now. If
Ah.
I connect the project, I have to add that project again in my solution. I don't want to do that. I just
Mm.
want the code,
Mm.
like a functionality. So I can,
Mm.
if I connect it like this, so then in that case, it's added to me, like it's
Ah.
added, right? But
Mm.
I'm not added. I haven't added it via project thing. I've added it like in a very CRUD connection. You can see all these libraries, they are not inside my project, right?
Mm.
They are added to me somewhere from the DLL, from somewhere installed in my PC.
Mm.
So all these DLL, similarly, I have added this DLL now. So now if I use the same thing, so let me just try to create SQL DAL. Now I can use this class again
Mm.
because I am having the DLL reference. So you see the using automatically given to me.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
if I do F12, you see this.
Mm.
I don't see the code anymore.
Yeah.
I just
Mm.
see those functions, and those functions that are defined is
Mm.
exactly same the way I was seeing the DB context, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exactly same, except I
Mm.
have some helper, like some comments to help me out. I
Mm.
can add that in my function by adding some decorations, so I can have exactly this thing. It's the same
Mm.
thing as my DB context here,
Mm.
this SQL DAL manager. Because
Yeah.
so you see, if I created a code for you, I won't share my code, right? I'll
Mm.
give you, then you can recreate my whole DL.
Mm.
I'll just share those functions, you can use them, and I know it's gonna work.
Mm.
So that's a way of giving some DLL. That's how the entity framework DLLs are given to me.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
can just see them, I can peek inside those functions, but I can't really see how the force functions are working.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
I'll just
Yeah.
remove this reference. It's not needed anymore. And
Mm.
I'll again remove this. And this. So you see why I showed you this part,
Mm.
because we have already created a class library, similar
Mm.
library like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Now let's initialize the constructor. So I was talking about this constructor, and I was saying that I will be using this one because I just want a connection string
Mm.
for this database. I don't have anything called DB combined model or any other thing. This is for extra like advanced kind of thing.
Mm.
I'll be using just connection string. So the way you initialize a base class constructor from your constructor is by calling a base function. See, when as soon as I write base, it gives me
Mm.
all those
Mm.
constructor uh, overloaded
Mm.
forms. So I'll be using the first one name, and it's coming from that again, as I showed you. So let's just call it db con key. So you can think that this will be present somewhere in my database, my web
Mm.
config, right? That's how I told.
Yeah.
That's how I say to the entity framework that this is the key, this is the database that you have to work upon.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
how I've connected it.
Mm.
I don't have to really write anything here. I can just
Mm.
leave constructor blank. It just I want to initialize my base constructor not blank.
Mm.
I want to point it out at some particular key.
Yeah. Mm.
That's how I do that.
Mm.
Now next thing is I want to tell this DB context is that what are my entities, right?
Mm.
I haven't told DB context that my book and these two models are my entities now.
Mm.
So I have to tell some way to this DB context that this is my entity. So
Yeah.
what I do is I'll let public and I'll say DB set. DB set can be think of a way that it's a table
Mm.
which will have book rows, and I'll
Mm.
say it books.
Mm.
It's as simple as this. So the advantage of using this kind of approach is whenever
Mm.
I'm initializing DB context in my controller or view or wherever I want to, I can just run a loop through all
Mm.
the rows.
Okay. Uh.
So it's just like saying list, but
Uh.
because I'm using a entity framework concept, so I'll be using DB set.
Mm.
Just
Mm.
collection of those. So you can
Uh.
imagine that inside this table,
But
books,
DB
not
set is mainly for um, entity framework when you're using
yeah.
SUS. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mainly for entity framework. And
Mm.
the way you can think of this DB set is, see, it's coming from the same class data or entity, same
Ah.
namespace. It's specifically for entity framework.
Mm.
And the way you can think of this is that it is a single row inside this books table
Mm.
will be of this form.
Mm.
So it's a collection of those rows, right?
Mm.
So this is a table books, and these
Mm.
are the collection of rows. And
Yeah.
whenever the framework is initialized, it
Mm.
will fill this books with all that data.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
Mm.
how I can get those books from
Mm.
database.
Mm.
And similarly, I will have something
For the customer
for
also.
the customer
Mm.
also,
Customers.
and I will call it
Mm.
customers. So you can think that my table name
Mm.
won't be book, it'll be books.
Mm.
My table name won't be customer, it will be customers.
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
If I make it book, then it becomes a class. It'll start causing me error. I have to call it a collection of something, right? So it'll be books, it'll be customers.
Yeah.
So these are the, and it's as easy. So I've defined the DB context that these are my entities now.
Mm.
Whichever entity you have to work upon, you have to define in this context class.
Mm.
Otherwise, it can't really, therefore it's very important to work on DB context here
Mm.
because we are working on a coding side.
Mm.
Now I'll show you a concept of function overriding. We saw function overloading. So this base that you saw is called
Yeah.
function overloading.
Mm.
Single function has been overloaded with multiple parameters. This is function overloading.
Mm.
But there's something called function overriding.
Already. Yeah. Mm.
Overriding comes into picture, especially when we are dealing with base and derived class. This is inheritance, right? This is
Yeah.
my base class. I'm creating a derived class from this inheritance.
Mm.
So what happens is there's some function in DB context class
Mm.
that I can use. So you
Mm.
can see that there's a function called on model creating,
Mm.
right?
So you
What?
put the F12, to come to here.
Yeah,
F12.
F12, F12, F12. So
F12.
you can even right click on
Mm.
this
Ah.
and you can say go to definition. See, it's F12.
Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
how I come to this class because it's very difficult for me to remember those functions, right? I have to
Oh,
see
yeah.
what this class is. And
Yeah.
this is for function overriding. There's a concept of virtual plus
Mm.
override. This is like an important concept of function
So the
over.
same function will do different activity. Same function will,
Yeah. That's the
but
thing.
will
So
be,
w- so
yeah.
so what I'll do is this function was previously. So you see, not every function can be
Mm.
overridden
Mm.
from your derived class.
Yeah.
Only function which are like written virtual can
Virtual.
only be over.
Yeah. Mm.
That's the
Mm.
important thing. So this overridden has all you can override this function again in your
Mm.
override.
Mm.
Only functions that are written virtual can be overridden. And there's
Mm.
some functions which are private to this class. You can't really see them here.
Mm. Mm.
Those can never be overridden.
Mm.
Only either something which is public or protected. Protected can also work because protected means that you are using a derived class.
Mm.
So if I am creating an object or if I'm using this class and I want to override the public function, I can do that without actually deriving that.
Mm.
But if I want to override a protected function, then I have to derive that from that class
Mm.
because
Mm.
protected actually flows only from base to derived class.
Mm.
Public flows everywhere.
Mm. Yeah.
This can only go from base to derived.
Mm.
That's protected. It can only go
Mm.
to its child. So the
Mm.
way it works is this function which is virtual now. I know this function can be overridden now. So
Mm.
as soon as I override it, the whole functionality changes now.
Mm.
This guy, whatever this guy was doing, he won't do that.
Mm.
His function, I'm saying that your functionality is being overridden by me.
Mm.
So rather than calling your function, you should call my function. So I use the same structure except I can't use virtual anymore.
Mm.
I'll say over,
Mm.
and it's just as simple as that.
Mm.
It just the function has to be virtual. If function is
Mm.
not virtual, you can't really override it.
Mm.
That's important.
Ah.
Now whatever that function was doing inside the DB contest class,
Mm.
it will use my coding thing.
Mm.
It will never use the DB context function. That's overriding. That whole function is being replaced now.
Oh. Yeah. Got it.
That
Mm.
function has been superseded by some other function, so that previous functionality is gone. It
Mm.
can't be used anymore. So that's
Mm.
overriding. In overloading, we preserve the functionalities.
Mm.
In overloading, we have different function with different parameters, so we preserve. So there's a way to go back to the previous function. But when you do overriding, you can't really go back.
Mm.
You actually like override that function. That's why it's called overriding.
Yeah.
You use
Mm.
your own functionality to supersede that functionality.
Mm.
And I think there's a way to call the base function from here. But I think generally how overriding works is I don't want to call the base function.
Mm.
So now what I want to do is in this model creating, I can do some kind of things which is required when this model is created.
Mm.
So what I basically want to do is I want to avoid the plural names of table. So you see the books is books, the customers customers. I don't want to create books and customers.
Mm.
I just want to create book inside my other table.
Yeah.
I can do that by using this model creating function. So
Mm.
inside a model builder, there's a functionality conventions.
Mm.
This is something which I don't know.
Mm.
I went through Google, I went through Microsoft documentation,
Mm.
and I figured out there's a way to do it. So
Mm.
these are something which is very you can say you need to remember. or you can say this is how it's going to work every time.
Okay.
So imagine you are in entity framework, you want to create, oh, I want to rename this table something else in my database. So then there's a way to do that, right?
Mm.
But because it's framework, so you will just Google it out and you'll see a solution and you can just do that.
Mm.
That's how you grow with this entity framework. But
Yeah.
I'm showing you the concept of virtual and override, therefore I'm doing this, otherwise I would have avoided it.
Mm.
So I will just use conventions dot, I'll add some convention. Takes I convention or something. So like let me just see. I don't remember the line now. It's difficult for me to remember what that code line is, and that's how the framework works. You can't really remember everything, right? You can just
Mm.
remember the concepts.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't remember that what that line was function was. And nobody really asked that in an interview
Mm.
because
Mm.
it's something which is very specific to framework. Why would I remember? It's not giving me any concept.
Mm. So
So
in
yeah,
this function, what you're exactly doing, creating a database table?
yeah, I'll show you what I'm exactly doing. So let me just once see that. Yeah. So what I'm doing is in this table, I want, so if I don't override this function or if I don't use this function, then my
Mm.
table created will be called books.
Okay.
But I want to create my table as book, not books.
Ah.
I just
Mm.
want to use the same model name as my table name, right?
Oh. Ah.
But otherwise, right now it's going to create books. I don't
That
want.
means a single book detail instead
No,
of
no, no, no.
books,
It,
multiple books.
I can say I can say it books also. But I just see the way tables work in SQL Server. We don't have plural form.
Ah.
We don't say entities. We just say entity. We don't
Ah.
say books. We say book. You must have seen that the user
Ah.
data. We don't say user data, right?
Oh.
We
Okay.
don't say user phone books
Mm. Mm.
because
Mm.
that's convention how SQL Server works. And the way I'm going to work here, I can't really say it books because it's a collection of books. So
Mm.
it's like more on a understanding perspective of
Mm.
both C Sharp and SQL Server.
Mm.
I can just avoid this. I don't want to. I can even have plural names. Nobody is like stopping me to do that. But
Ah.
what if you want to have the same, like the way you were asking that my model name should match my table name.
Okay. Okay.
Right now it won't, right?
Ah. Ah.
It'll be book. It'll be called books there, and right now
Mm.
you have a book here.
Yes.
So I just want to match those.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's a way to do that. What I want to show you is the concept of function overriding, how it works,
Mm. Mm.
and using that I'm just making some changes inside the whole functionality.
Mm.
So I'll say remove, and in remove, I'll pass some convention,
Mm.
and I'll say remove plural, something called plural. Wait. So I don't remember the name.
Ah.
Pluralizing table name convention. Pluralizing table name convention. You see, you can't
Ah.
really remember this
Yeah.
code, right?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
It'll be very
Yeah.
difficult if somebody says that, oh, you need to remember this code. So it's something which is written in the documentation. Microsoft provides it to you. You
Mm.
just Google out there avoid plural names of table, and you'll see Microsoft documentation saying that you should use this line.
Ah. Ah. Okay.
But the thing
Mm.
that I'm trying to say is it's like the whole context can be customized using these kind of functions. You see, it
Mm.
gives you a lot of functions. On
Mm.
model creating, should validate entity, dispose, save
Mm.
changes, validate entity. So it provides you a way by which you can peek, the functionality,
Mm.
how a table is going to create a database.
Mm.
So this is the concept of function overriding.
Mm.
So I can only override virtual functions, and that's how I can, handle my base class can handle, like my derived class can handle the functionality of base class.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm saying that you shouldn't create any table name with plural names. So that's
Mm.
what this line says.
Mm.
And that's so it's going to create books and customer in my database.
Mm.
So my context class is ready.
Yeah.
Now what I want to do is with this context class, I want to create like a basic initial records.
Mm.
I don't want my table to be empty. I just want to seed it with some data so that
Mm.
I can see it on the UI.
Yeah.
And I can
Mm.
do that pretty easily. I'll
Mm.
just add a new class inside my DAL because that's where I'm working with data.
Mm.
I'll say library data initializer. You can name it anything,
Mm.
just to be more, understanding.
Mm.
So this is the class which will initialize my library data. And what I'll do is I'll derive it from some functionality again from entity framework.
Mm.
So I'll say that drop create database if model changes.
Mm.
There's also something called drop create or database always. So every time I run my application, it will drop my database.
Mm.
It will create my database and put in my data again, this entire data again. But I don't want that. Once my data is filled inside my table, I want it to change only if my model is changing.
Mm.
I don't want to, every time I run my application, I do a debug, my whole database getting dropped and created again.
Mm.
But maybe maybe you want that. So there's a functionality for that, but I'll be
Mm.
using this.
Mm.
So drop create database if model changes.
Mm.
And again, see, as soon as I do this, it gives me that you have to enter the DB context.
Mm.
Now everything is connected via this DB context class.
Yeah.
Everywhere I want to work with entity framework, my DB context is library DB context.
Mm.
So that's where the DB context is very important for entity framework to work upon. So
Okay.
I'll say my DB context library DB context because you can imagine that this class, whatever this class is doing,
Mm.
it knows exactly what your DB context is. It knows your tables, and it
Mm.
also knows your connection string.
Mm.
So this class knows everything you need to know about your entity
Mm.
framework.
Mm.
That's why this context becomes very important. That's why we derive it from a DB
Mm.
context class.
Mm.
And how deriving helps is the DB context class that you are having is is very generic.
Mm.
It's having those functionality predefined for you. So deriving that, you get all this functionality to your derived class.
Mm.
So you don't have to rewrite anything again, right?
Yeah.
So now
Mm.
I've defined this my DB library analyzer. Now because I'm using this, so you can imagine me that I don't know what function to use, right?
Mm.
So I'll just speak this class. So it gives me again a virtual void seed.
Mm.
You see, as soon as you see virtual, you can realize I can override it
Mm.
because this is a virtual thing.
Yeah.
So I can just copy this, and this is a T context, so it's a generic. T context
Mm.
basically means this can take any class of DB context type. You see, the
Mm.
where T context is DB context. So that's
Mm.
how you create generic parameters.
Mm.
That's called generic. So it's like
Yeah.
whenever I have defined this class, wherever I defined it, I've said that this T context can only be that class which is of DB context type.
Yeah.
I can't
Mm.
pass any class. It has to be
Mm.
DB context type. So
Mm.
that's what the T context says. You see that there's a where thing.
That means the different data types it will be there in that
Yeah,
class.
yeah. It
Yeah.
can take any context. That's how
Mm.
you make function generic, right?
Mm.
If you have
Yeah.
made it specifically for DB context, then it'll break apart.
Mm.
So it has to be very generic. It can take any kind of context, which
Mm.
whosoever is deriving it, it can
Mm.
take that context,
Yeah.
which is what it has to go with. That's how it should
Mm.
work.
Mm.
I'll use the seed function, and again you can imagine me overriding it because I want to use the seed.
Mm.
And this context doesn't really work here. I
Mm.
have to put my library DB context. And this parameter is correct now because
Mm.
my library DB context is of a DB context class, and that's
Mm.
what the seed wants.
Mm.
So it won't show me any error. Now this function will have the right context initialized with me. So now I have this properties object,
Mm.
which will be created for me
Mm.
somewhere by my data initializer, and I
Ah.
can seed it now.
Mm.
So now let's just create few records.
Mm.
So I will have a list of book. I'll call them books. This is like what I created the dummy records, remember?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be just creating those dummy records here.
Mm.
New book, and I'll call it book ID. I won't give,
Mm.
and you'll see what I'll do that for the model. I won't give book ID. I want my book ID will be auto incrementing.
Auto increment. Yeah.
So I won't do that. I'll write title to be A, B, C, D.
Mm.
Title to be title 1,
Mm.
and serial number to be A, B, C, D 1.
Mm.
Author to be auth 1. And you can write anything, right? I'm just
Mm.
creating a dummy records for
Mm.
one. And I'll just copy this so that I can create 5 records. And I'll just change this to title 2, title 3, title 4, title 5. These are 5 books
Mm.
with 5 serial numbers. It doesn't matter that
Yeah.
of that author
Second.
publisher doesn't really
Mm.
matter. So I can just leave it apart.
Mm.
And so all these books are created now for me.
Mm.
Now I want to add these books inside my database, right? And you can see that it's very simple to do it now.
Mm.
What I'll do is I'll use a for each. I'll go through these books one by one, and I will use this context dot. You can see
Mm.
this context has that
Mm.
DB set, right?
Mm. Mm.
I'll add those books into this DB set. So that's how this DB set is going to work now. It's like a
Oh.
connection of list, right? It's just it's not list, it's
Yeah.
dbset. So I can really convert it from list to dbset, but
Mm.
I have this functionality of adding it. So context dot books dot add, and I'll add all these books on my one. Now, if everything is added in this context, I have to somehow tell the entity framework, now you can save my database.
Mm.
You can do add these records and add inside my database. So save in database, and you'll see this line used a lot. Context dot save changes, and that's it.
Mm.
It will, because that's you see the advantage of having this context now, because this
Mm.
context knows everything about my entity, so I can add stuff in my entities, and I
Mm.
can use this line context dot save changes.
Mm.
Similarly, I can add customers. Let's see that also
Yes.
in one go. New customer, and the name will be customer one. The address will be ADD1. The contact will be CONT1. Doesn't really matter. Just
Mm.
for, and I don't want to pass any customer ID. I should be auto incrementing.
Yeah.
So let's add 5 customers again. There's something that now you're familiar with, all those list concepts and the
Mm.
classes. And this is the way by which I can initialize list in by defining it. I can use another way also you can think of
Mm.
is by creating the list first, then using the appending thing.
Mm.
But this is pretty fast. I can do it one go. And you can again imagine that I have this in my contact, I have this DB set of customers, right?
Mm.
I have to add these customers in the DB set. So actually the database knows,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So I'll go with for each customer in customers. That's the way of going through
Mm.
one by one.
Mm.
And I'll add this time in the context, I'll add it inside a customers. All these customer. And you can imagine me, after I've done this, I want to save it again.
Mm.
So I'll just do context dot save changes, right?
Mm.
And this is a simple way which this is, you can imagine me creating, like there will be a create query can be fired somewhere. There'll be some insert query written for me,
Mm.
and it will run all these command. It will come back.
Yeah.
So this
Mm.
same change will do everything it's needed.
Mm.
It will convert this whole thing into an insert statement and fire that query, come back to me.
Mm.
So somewhere down the line there will be insert query fired. That's the
Yeah.
only way you can interact with database, right?
Mm.
But this guy is going
Mm.
to do that for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now something that this thing doesn't know is in my model, which is the primary key.
Mm.
I have not defined any
Correct.
way by which this model to know that's my primary key. It's auto incrementing. So
Yeah.
I can use a concept, something which is called data annotations.
Mm.
It is provided automatically added to me inside my references.
Mm.
So what data annotations is I can decorate these properties with some kind of hint.
Mm.
So I can
Mm.
say this is a key. And if you do control dot, you can just
Mm.
use using. That's a way of saying that this is going to my primary
Mm.
key, and because it's a
Mm.
primary key, I'm not saying anything else, it will be auto incrementing.
Mm.
So that's like a very simple way of defining it.
Mm.
Similarly, I can say that this field is required. You'll see this is very important. If this field
Mm.
is required now, that means this field become not null.
And be empty. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. You
Mm.
get it
Mm.
right. You see how
Mm.
models are matching with the
Mm.
database.
Mm.
Similarly, I want my serial
That
number.
means all doing automatic validation here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
That also, and it's gonna create the table in a way that this validations are, there in the inside of those tables.
Mm.
That's how these fields work.
Yeah. Mm.
And I can say author and publisher to be like null. I can allow them to be null.
Mm.
So I'm not using required.
Yeah.
Similarly, inside the customer section, I will say this is a
Key.
key,
Mm.
and then I have to again use data annotations. I'll say this is a required name. I need that. I also need an address.
Mm.
And I also need contact. So you can think of this table having all these, attributes with not null properties.
Mm.
These are required. Otherwise, the query will break.
Mm.
So I have now my framework knows what my tables are. My framework knows how to initialize those tables and which is the primary key and which are the required fields. So all I have to do, what's left is I haven't tell the framework yet where's my connection string.
Yeah.
I haven't defined it anywhere. Now you can imagine me
Correct.
defining it inside a web config, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best way you can define configurations. So I can open web config. First, I have to add the connection string, and then I have to tell something about the entity framework that I'm using library DB. See this class, I've added it here. I've inherited, but I haven't tell the whole application that this is going to my DB context. Nobody knows that, right? It could be any class.
Yeah.
How can my framework knows that? So I have to provide that connection also, and how to actually make it work. So first let's add the connection string. So I'll just copy it from my previous project. This is my connection string. You can again copy it from your own project. This time you'll see one change, which is very important. That it's the same thing. I will have the name again, could be DB con key. This is the same name that you're gonna use here. It has to match.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it won't be able to search it. The, you still have this connection string, which I have the test database. But you have to provide your provider name here, which is very important. Because what happens is the entity framework is generic. It can work for other databases also. It can work for MySQL. It can also work for PostgreSQL. It's like very generic, stable framework. So you have to define that which database you want to work upon so that it knows. Because when it's creating those queries, there is a syntax difference between MySQL and SQL Server.
Yeah.
That you create source proc. How there's a little bit difference with the SQL. So it need to know that which is the database that you were talking to, so that I can create those queries in the right way. So now you have to add provider name. If you don't add provider name, it will break, saying
Okay.
you are not using provider name. It's very important now. Previously it was optional because that's fine. We don't really know need to think from that direction, but now you need to. That's first step connection string. Next, you can see because you've added this framework via NuGet, not via hand. So everything is ready for you to work upon. So automatically you'll see something added to you, which is called entity framework tag. If you have done this via hand, you won't be able to see this tag. So that's very important to go via NuGet framework.
Ah.
NuGet framework works really well because it adds all those things together, right?
Yeah.
Now, in this entity framework, I can define my context, like which is my context. So I'll say contexts, and inside I'll add my own context. Now this context has this, a way of defining it. So I will say type. Now type has a convention. It's very important to follow this convention. If you forget that, you'll like mess everything up. It's need to have the namespace, like full namespace of class. I'm writing it in English, then I'll change it. Namespace of your DB context class, comma, assembly name. So the type full namespace of DB context class, you can think that base my DB context class is the library DB context,
Yeah.
and I can't just end this library DB context. That'll be wrong. I want full context name. Why? Because I'm working from outside. I'm working from a config which is outside at a very top level. I need to define the I need to define the name also, right? So that means I have to take the full namespace. So that means this, or so this is now a full namespace. That's why I said
Oh.
it needs a full namespace to your class. It needs to know everything that how to reach that class. Next thing which is important, it needs to know which assembly your class in. So whenever I run this, I rebuild it or do something about it, it creates an assembly for me of this project. So let me just open it. It's coming, not coming. Yeah. So in this, you can see that whatever my project is, I will have a DLL of that name. You see, that's a DLL. That means this DLL will have that whole entire project, that DAL class. So that is the name I have to give. You can match this assembly name via going to right click, properties, and you'll see your assembly name here. You see assembly name?
Yeah.
You can copy that. There'll be your assembly name because that's a DLL it's gonna create for your project.
Mm.
So I'll close this and I'll add the assembly name. Now your context is clear for the web config entity framework that it knows exactly where it needs to go. Now there's something in
This is
the
usually that assembly name is the our application library management UI,
usually
correct?
yes.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is you create like a hyphen.
Uh.
This hyphen will not be your library name. So for me, when I was doing the same thing,
Mm.
so you see my was hyphen here,
Uh.
but my namespace was something different again. It's underscore. So
Uh.
now there's a mismatch of library assembly name and library name, that's
Mm.
namespace name, right?
Yeah.
Generally it should be same, but
Mm.
sometimes there's a mismatch. So if something goes wrong or something wrong is happening, there might be a mismatch in your
Mm.
site. For us, it's same because I'm not using any kind of convention. I'm not using hyphen or some kind of special character.
Mm.
So I'm pretty sure my things are matching. So I can use them.
Mm. Mm.
Now the next thing that you need to set in the context, if if you are having this data initializer, you need to tell the entity framework that I have a data initializer.
Mm.
That means I have to set this. There's only one type that's provide extra database initializer, and I have to set type. And you can see again the same convention happening.
Mm.
I have to have the same convention. So I can go to data initializer. I need to provide the full data initializer here. Dot data initializer. That's a full class name, comma, and then obviously I'll be having the same library, right?
Mm.
That's how you write classes here
Uh.
inside this. So the you see this is kind of thing that's how it works inside WebConf.
Mm.
It's a convention. You write the full namespace, comma
Mm.
the assembly name.
Mm.
So now my entity framework knows what my context class is. My entity framework knows what my data initializer class is. My connection string is being provided in webconfig. Everything is ready.
Mm.
It knows my entities, it knows my database to go, it knows what initialization is going to happen, where
Mm.
is the seed is.
Mm.
So when I run this project, everything should work.
Mm.
So let's try and to run this. Obviously, we don't have any UI, so we won't be seeing anything on the UI right now, but we will go to database and see those tables. This is a database that I've connected. I should see those tables pre-filled for me, right?
Mm.
So right now, if I see, I don't have those tables. It's going to expand. So it's running now. And I don't know what this guy is doing. Let it run. I think it might be the first one that we are doing after adding entity framework.
Mm. Yeah.
Sometime you might also, face this slow lagging issues. You click on tables and they might not be expanding and something. So
Mm.
it all depends on how the load of is. So see, it's very high right now. If it's like running at a very hot high thing, then something it might be slow.
Oh.
There's no problem from your coding side. It just spec.
Mm. Mm.
Something is going on with this guy. Can't be able to. So in that case, maybe what you can do is you can just I can't even disconnect. That's weird. Just stuck. Now it's working maybe. So what I wanted to show is
Mm.
those tables won't be created.
Ah.
That's like
That
that's
that
like the
ta-
catch.
that table.
Yeah, those tables, those
Ah.
books and customers table, it won't be created inside the database.
Ah.
And you'll feel like you'll be scratching your head all along
Ah.
that I did everything right. Why is my
Mm.
table not
Mm.
coming? There's a reason for
Mm.
that. Because
Ah.
the reason that's how the entity framework works.
Ah.
It just this guy is not working. I don't know why it's not opening. Maybe what I'll do is what I can do is I can just close this and
So
reopen.
each time that whatever you mentioned in the web.config, we should use the same steps, correct? Whenever you.
Yeah, the configuration is exactly same. Every time any
Mm,
guy whosoever is doing it,
mm,
he will be using the same configuration,
yeah.
same
So
steps.
when you hearing first time, little feeling challenging. Maybe once you used with that, maybe
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would be.
So this is something that I don't remember. When I
Mm,
was building this project, I went through those documentation and I remembered it. Okay,
mm,
that's how it's gonna be done. Because see,
mm,
the framework, how framework works is, it doesn't mean that you need to have that understanding. You need to
mm,
remember those commands. You need
mm.
to understand the concept.
Concept,
The
yeah.
the big thing is that you need to know why a thing is not working. If
Mm,
somebody, I give you a entity framework project and I say
mm,
why is this not working, you need
mm,
to look at right places. Oh, the
mm,
context is given or not, connection string is
mm,
given or not, the class is not defined in the right way or not. You cannot.
mm,
These are concepts.
mm.
What is the class name? What is the config? Those lines. That's not an issue.
Okay.
Nobody really asks you to remember that. It'll be very
Mm,
wrong because that's not related to C# or framework. It's more on an entity framework side.
mm.
So
Yeah.
you don't really need to remember
Mm,
that. Let
yeah.
so what I want to show is let for let it to open. I can just maybe try here if it's able to connect.
Maybe shut down and close one more time that Visual Studio.
No, Visual Studio is fine. It's problem with some SSMS. So
Mm,
I can try the Server Explorer here. Maybe the server was stuck for some reason.
mm,
It might show me connections here. So that there'll also be like, if you see tables here, then you'll know. It's running very slow. It's not opened. Let's connect that. Server is working because I'm able to connect it.
mm,
Databases, test, tables. Yeah, something was stuck at that time.
mm,
So clearly you can see that my tables are not there, but even I have connected everything correct and it's
mm,
perfectly correct. I'm telling you, I won't, in order to fix it, I won't change anything.
mm,
Everything is right in place, but sometime you might see, like sometime you forget, sometime you see that I've done everything correct. Why is not my tables coming there?
mm, mm,
There's a big reason for that is how entity framework works. It doesn't
mm,
really, start creating those tables when you start the application.
mm,
Will only create those table when I start accessing the DB context.
mm,
So because that DB context I haven't used it anywhere,
mm,
so I'm not seeing it. But as soon as I start using it, you'll see that those tables being created. I'm not using it anywhere, right? I'm just created that class. I haven't created any object of it.
yeah. Mm,
So let's create that. So in the controller, in the index page, I'll be using the same page only. Or maybe what I can do is I can create a new controller for books.
mm,
It'll be easier. I'll be using entity framework, and
mm.
you'll see that everything will be done for you. But let's
Okay.
not do that first time.
Mm,
Let's try to go it code by like line by line. Then
mm,
we can start using. We'll be starting for customers specifically. I'll be using this.
mm,
But right now, just create something for book
mm,
so that you know what is being done, and you'll start getting more comfortable with the MVC and Razor part.
mm,
So let's add a new controller books. And because I'm using scaffolding, so you can think of that's going to create a view folder for me automatically.
yeah.
And it's going to add this index function.
Mm,
So it will create a view folder with books and index function. Now what I'll do is I'll access that library DB context.
mm,
So I'll say library DB context. You see it's coming here. I'll create a new object DB, new library DB context. Remember that my class constructor is empty.
mm,
So I don't really need to pass anything here, which is
mm,
nice.
mm,
I can create a blank constructor, but yes, I have to create a class. I can't have a static thing here.
mm,
If I don't do this, so what this line will do, it will go to my constructor, my class constructor. It will go to the base class constructor,
mm,
provide the connection key, come back, give me object.
mm.
So you can imagine that this line still doesn't really, do anything with database yet. So even if I learn this line, I still
Mm,
won't see any tables
mm,
because I'm not interacting anyway with those tables, right?
yeah. Mm,
I'm just letting the framework know this is the connection string.
mm,
Now, what I'll do is inside this index view, I'll pass the books as a record.
Mm.
So what I'll say is db dot. Now, as soon as I say db dot, so you should see these books and customers tables, right? Because in the DB
Yeah.
set, you remember, those were
Mm.
the tables. So
Yeah.
I'll say books dot, maybe I'll say to list. It'll be easy.
Mm.
Because that DB set is not list, so I've converted into list so that it'll be easy for me to access
Mm.
deep down my view. And as soon as this line is fired,
Mm.
you can imagine I want to access books now. My books can't be accessed unless I create a table, I fill it with seed, then only it can give me those book records, right?
Mm.
So this line is the one thing that's gonna trigger the whole flow.
Yeah. Mm.
That's how Entertainment works. If you don't
Mm.
access it, I won't do anything about it. You want to access it, then you tell me.
Mm.
And that's like the one of the concept which is called eager loading.
Mm.
We'll be covering that later on, but it's
Mm.
like a sneak peek of eager loading.
Mm.
Nothing is pre-filled for you. You want that, I'll give it to you.
Ah. Mm.
So that's the concept of eager loading. You want that, you let me know you want that, I'll pre-fill for you.
Mm.
So I want books, it's gonna get that book for me. So it's like somebody gonna go down, it's gonna
Mm.
create, first gonna check, oh, the database doesn't exist, let's fire seed.
Mm.
We'll create the database, fire seed, oh, now you want the books, so I'll create a select query for you. I'll
Mm.
create a select query, oh, that's the query, I give you back, and that's gonna come back in DB set, you can convert it into list, everything works fine.
Mm.
You see how it's gonna work? The whole
Yeah.
flow, somebody's gonna handle it for me,
Mm.
and I don't really touch database at all.
Mm.
Now, in order to make this work, I have to change my view because I'm passing something on my view.
Mm.
So in the books, let's add a new view. Index, that's a view name. And let's make it empty so that I can show you the syntax. I'm using the same layout page. I don't want to
Mm.
make it partial because I want to create a whole new page from beginning.
Mm.
So let's add that. And you can see I'm passing a list of books, right?
Mm.
So my model will be I enumerable. And this time I'm using the book
Mm.
model.
Mm.
So it's not coming. You see the syntax is not helping me. Or is helping
Mm.
me. It's helping me. So that's something that I'm coming. And why I'm not saying it like list, because it then damages the way I'm going to define the display now. If I use
Ah.
list, then my things, the way I use razor, it's going to hamper it.
Mm.
So it's better to have it inside something which is very generic, enumerable.
Mm. Instead of
I,
list, you can use
the
an
list,
enumerable.
enumerable. It's
Mm.
same as saying as the list. If now because you are understanding bit things in a much nice manner,
Mm.
if you put F12, because you can do F12 anything, right?
Mm.
You'll see it derives from those enumerable
Yeah. Mm.
and gives you those functionalities. And
Mm.
you can imagine that there is no virtual here.
Mm.
If there's no virtual, there's no way to override anything.
Mm.
So you need to understand this concept. And this T, that means this guy is going to give back any class.
Okay. Mm.
That's generic. If it's
Mm.
T, this guy is going to take any class. So right now I'm passing book, right?
Ah.
So that's why it's called T. T
Mm.
is the way you define generic concepts inside C Sharp.
Because the data is static, that is why you're using the enumerable. If it's
No,
a
no.
di
I'm using enumerable because if I want to use, as I'm going to define those display for, it'll be very easy for me to define those. Because I'll show you right now. If I
Mm.
use list, then something really hampers the way I work inside those results in text. I'll show you. So because I have to create the display for of these guys. So let's create, let's call this books management, this page, and let's create a table.
Mm.
Now I'll be working with Bootstrap. So
Mm.
that's where you see the Bootstrap entering into picture.
Yeah.
In order to see those Bootstrap thing, let me just open Bootstrap classes, Bootstrap, and provides me a way to define. So whenever I want to work on a UI, I'll say I'll go to Bootstrap. I'll say get started, and I will look at, I want to work on tables, right?
Mm.
And this guy gives me the way to work on tables, says that you define your class with table,
Mm.
and then you define your class with column,
Yeah.
with THTR, and
Mm.
I'll create a pretty nice decent view for you.
Mm.
So that's what
Mm.
I'll do.
Mm.
I'll say table class, and as soon as I tables, you see automatically everything is given to me, and that's a B icon.
Yeah.
That's Bootstrap.
Mm.
So I know I'm going to create a table, and inside my t head, I can say t head or t har row. I have to define these names. Now you see that's where the IEnumerable will help you. So when I say th, I'll say model dot, I'll say HTML dot write a display for, like create a display for this guy, and inside this I'll say um I can say m dot. All these functionalities that you see is specifically related to IEnumerable, right?
Yeah.
What I'll go do is I'm gonna say model dot user ID. What's the title? Wait, let me just clarify once, because there's a difference the way things are defined. There's a difference. That's why I want to use it. So yeah, I'm doing the same thing. So let's create this display for model, define it. Sometimes your syntax won't help. Like this, you see, Razor doesn't really know what you want to do, and even if you're using the same thing. So let's try display name for. Now see, my model title is coming to me, and you can imagine this is a for loop, right? There's a list of books. What if I want to create? I want to just get those names, and if I make this a list, then this line will start breaking. This line will start giving me exception. One, and second good thing of using IEnumerable is this become very generic view now. I can pass list, I can pass any enumerable thing, array, dictionary.
Okay.
So that's a very nice thing, right? Why you restrict yourself your view to your list? You can be have any collection set. So that's the idea of using IEnumerable. How display name for works is it creates those names. So what do you think this title will be? This title will be the name of this property, just the title.
Yeah.
It's going to create that display. So that's how this display name for works. And let's just verify the HTML once. So t head has a tr row. This is just syntax of HTML. You don't really know it. Just once you work around it, you will start getting it. And I want title. I want serial number. So display name for model dot serial number, right?
Yeah.
And I want a display name for. I'm just trying to show you so that you know this. Otherwise, next time when I'm working on customer, I won't be doing this. This will
So
be automatic done
it
for me.
make the look also better for.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
having this class and having this format, it looks you'll have a very nice, decent look. Because I want this tabular form, right? I'm just creating a table out there.
Yeah.
HTML dot display name for model dot publisher. So there'll be 4 columns. Then I will have something called actions, the edit, delete kind of operations. That's a t head. Then inside a t body, I will have add a new row. Now adding a new row, so every time I add a new row, it'll be a for loop, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a for loop. Every book has a new row. That means for each, and I'll be using this book object. Now, rather than using this, generally what people prefer is that why not create a var, right? It'll be easy for me to have var, and my code doesn't like very verbose, and it will automatically handle that. Otherwise, I have to write the whole library dot.
Yeah.
And right now, because it has been typecasted, so every functionality will be there for me. It knows, see, as I hover on where it knows that, oh, you're talking about book. So compile time has been done for it. So every dot thing will work now.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll just create a new row. and I have to create 4 new rows. Oh, okay, so what I'll do is, yeah, td, I'll create a new, yeah, so I'll create a new row and new cell because this is a header, right? Every row will have a cell. That's how table works.
Mm.
You have a row, you have headers. Then if you have like 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headers, right?
Mm.
So then
Yeah.
I have 5 cells. So I'm creating one cell one by one.
Mm.
So in this, I'll be adding HTML dot. Again, I can use display for. Now I don't want to get the name. I want to get the
Mm.
value. I want to get the value of title.
Yeah.
So I'll be using
Right.
display for. Otherwise, I have to use display text for.
Mm.
That if I use display name, that it's gonna get the the property name.
Mm.
I want to get the value now.
Mm.
So book dot. So like you can say b also b dot, or you can directly use display, whichever way things work. So let me just clarify the syntax once. This is something that you also will be looking back and forth,
Mm. Mm.
So it's gonna create, yeah, so I was doing the right thing. Display for, let's just say some random name.
Mm.
And whatever I'm doing right now is arrow key. Remember, you see all those arrows? This is called lambda expression.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And what exactly this thing is working, I'll show you when I am dealing with delegates.
Mm.
I have to explain that concept because it'll be difficult for you to understand the later concepts without understanding delegates.
Mm.
So let's create book dot, serial number. That's the third. So HTML. And when I'm writing it, it's pretty fast because my everything is help to me, right?
Ah.
My this Visual Studio is helping me a lot
Mm.
with the
Mm.
next thing.
Yeah.
So I don't have to really think about author. I just write A and everything comes. So like the writing, the coding thing is becomes very fast. Book dot publisher, and in the last cell I'll be using HTML action link
Mm.
and some actions. So how action works, it takes a link text, then action
Mm.
name, then controller name,
Yeah.
and some routes,
Mm.
right? So in the link text, I'll say edit as a link text. Action name can also be called edit.
Mm.
Controller name can be called books. And in the next thing that you haven't seen yet, but it'll be very important now, is to pass either HTML attributes or route values. You see, now as soon as I did books, so now the next thing should be route values.
Mm.
Then it should be HTML attributes. So
Yeah.
in the route values, I can say that new id equal to book dot book id. Whenever this function is fired
Mm.
as a id, it's gonna pass this book id in the for loop automatically. So that's how these route values work. Because in order to edit a book, I need to know the book id, right?
Mm.
In order to delete a book, I need to know the book id. So that's the edit functionality. Similarly, I will be adding one delete functionality. And it's going to go to books control again, and I have to add route because it'll be very weird if I don't add
Mm.
what to delete. As soon as I click, it needs to know what to delete. So I'll add book ID, and that's it. I delete is enough for
Mm.
me right now. So
Mm.
those were the actions, and I think I've done everything that's needed to show book and to. I haven't defined the edit delete. I'll do that, but my books should be visible to me now.
Mm.
And because I'm using this DB context, this context inside my controller, except
Mm.
what I haven't done yet is my route is still not set to books, right? I have no way to reach to books now yet.
Mm. Yeah.
I'll go to layout
Mm.
and I'll set my application name to be library management. And I don't want to use home. I want to use books.
Mm.
Similarly, I just set it to books, and I'll comment these guys out because I don't have any contact and about.
Mm.
And still, yet I won't be going to my books as a default controller. Can you think why?
Because default controller
Yeah,
going to
still,
the
yeah, still when my application runs, it will still go to home controller.
because
Yeah.
layout and home control layout and index page. Did you change the index?
So if you remember that there's a default route also set somewhere in my route config, I also set this as a default route.
Yeah.
When nothing is passed, they automatically goes to home,
Go
and
to home. Yeah.
so I have to change this to books also. So
Ah.
now everything is set to my new controller. I won't be using home anymore. So if I run this application, and as soon as I run this, so this command, as soon as this command is fired, it's gonna, let's try this, that how this thing flows. It should somewhere, reach my DB. It should somewhere reach here. So what is processing? It should somewhere also reach here inside my seed. Right? That's always gonna work. So let's see how the code flows. Because I'm set my controller to be books controller now. So
Yeah.
at the very beginning, it will fire my book controller. Yeah, it should reach here when it runs. Let's see. That's why I wanted to write Razor pages some more, because you see it needs some kind of fluency to understand.
Ah.
If you don't write Razor pages, you use scaffolding every time, then you miss out those syntaxes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Visual will create it for you, but then you will have to wait. You have to like, you can't really debug if problem is happening. So see, at the very first beginning, give me a minute. So that means my books controller hits hitting by default, and it's gonna first create this Libby. Is it not responding? Yeah. So it's gonna create this object very beginning, and let's see what happens if I do F10. Still not, seed function is not fired. I was telling you that even if you create an object, your seed won't be fired because you're not accessing anything. That's called eager loading concept.
Okay.
As soon as I start accessing it, it will start, creating. Oh, database not created. Oh, tables are not found. Data is not there. Framework will know everything. Something is missing. Let's do that first. Then only give back the books record. So now let's go to this view, and in order to actually access this view, it will now go to model creating. So see my model, because before creating table, before doing seed, it has to create those tables first.
Yeah.
And in order to create those tables, you have to see what has to be done at the time of table creating. So I'm saying that don't pluralize those names. So now it knows that, and it will be firing seed now. And see, it's come to seed. Because now that means before going to seed, it has created those tables. Let's see if those tables are present now. Book customer tables are created. And you can see clearly that those are not pluralized. It's not books, it's not customers. Because I've added this line. If you remove this line, you'll see that it will start creating those names as books and customers.
Yeah.
So now it's called book, which is what I wanted. In the columns, you can clearly see that book ID is auto incrementing. Int not null primary key. Title is not null because I made it required. Serial number is not null, I made it required. And these guys are allow null format.
Yeah.
Similarly for the customer, you can see that customer ID is primary key, name is not null, all of the guys are not null. And the name convention is exactly same as the property. You see, you can change that also using those data annotations.
Yeah.
What to create as a column name. You can think that creating a new data annotation, I can handle that. And now if you look at this table, let's do a select star from book empty. Because model has still created table, the seed is still not fired. I was waiting on seed, right? Seed's all empty.
Yeah.
Now let's fire that seed. Let's create those books and go to these books one by one, add these books into context. And changing context doesn't mean that database will be changed. If I don't fire this line, you'll see that my record is still blank.
Till you save the changes, huh?
Yeah, until you save changes, you basically this line says to framework that do this thing now. If you don't do this, there's nothing to be changed the database side. As soon as this line is fired, oh, did I press reload? I press reload. Now, see, both of the things are done. My records are filled, my customers is filled, and my UI is shown with those records. This is what I created at the time, right? This is
Yeah.
the table with the headers.
Mm.
There is a table with these rows, and every guy has been displayed for. And now because I am passing it as, let's remove these pointers. I'll show you this. If I run this again, it won't really run this correctly because it will only drop in Cricut if model changes. There's no change in the model, it won't run the seed again. Otherwise, you'll see if records being inserted every time I run this. That'll be right. Just for the initial purposes. And similarly, go to this controller, let's remove this. So this line now, whatever this line basically triggers the whole entity framework. As soon as I access book, everything is triggered for me. And then it gives back those books. I convert into list. I pass inside view. So you can see this, see my view to be like a typed view, like a strongly typed view. And then I add those headers. And then I add those values in for loop with edit and delete. That's what it shows in the UI. And you see, if I hover over edit, you see at the bottom, length is equal to 5. Shouldn't be length though. I'll see what to change. But this has its individual route. So every guy is defined with that route because I have made them action link. Now let's change this thing, that serial number. Let's make it serial space number, right?
Yeah.
You might have to change the thing. So I won't be doing anything at the Razor side. I can do this via edit annotations. So in my book class, it won't hamper anyway my database, but it will definitely be used by display photo. Display name, I can say serial number. Because what I'm doing in my Razor file, if you remember, I was calling a display name for, right? In the header, I was calling HTML display name for serial number. So it's gonna fetch the display name for. If it's not provided, it will use the property name. If it is provided, then it will use the name that I've given here.
Yeah.
Right? I've given that. Not gonna use that. So that's the advantage of using display name for. Create those properties. Now let's run it, and you'll see that seed won't be firing anymore. So even if I put breakpoint on this seed, you won't be seeing it getting fired, which is important, which has to be, because every time if it get fired every time, then I have to create records every time. I will still have to go through this model convention, and maybe it drop creates. Let's see what happens. It's not. See, it does because I've set my data here to be drop model database if model changes. So as soon as I create a new property here, it's gonna change. It's gonna be fired because my model changed.
Yeah.
If my model is same, then why would I fire the same seed queries again and again? So that's what that line means. Drop model if the model changes. If I made it to be always drop create database always, then every time I run this debug project, it will drop and create database every time. So you see, you remember there was 2 lines here: drop create database always, drop create database if model changes. So that's the advantage of using this line if model changes.
Yeah, got it.
And now I can see this record, and you see the serial number is better now because I'm using display name for, and I'm providing space. So that's why the display name serial number is now much better.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of using the display name for properties. And once I do a scaffolding thing for entity framework, you'll see I won't even write these select curd operations. Everything will be pre-filled for me by using when I create a model controller with entity framework. But you need to see at least how things are working, right?
Yeah.
Before actually using the whole Visual Studio thing. So now everything is done, everything is pre-filled. So this thing is working fine. And
So
I haven't
in this
created, yeah.
In this case, we are using the data, static data now to fill the table.
Yeah, static data.
Yeah, but when you're doing the dynamic, in that case, how to do that in that case? Just
So generally, like, see, I'm using C data right now so that I can test my application. But in real world, then I have to add this create view. Yeah, there has to be a create new button. Using that, I can create new records.
okay.
So I'll also do that. I've missed that line. So let's, because we have to see how entity framework can be
Yeah,
used
got
to
it.
create queries, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or create records. So let's do that. The first thing that I will do in my view is I'll add this button p, and I'll say HTML action link, and I'll say create new book. I'll pass it to a create function of books controller. You can miss things out here because if I'm still in index.html and I insert the books, then I have to write the books thing. But I'm just making it, making it specifically for this, because what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that you understand. You can miss things out. So inside my books controller, now I will have a new function, a create function, right? Now you can see that inside this create function, I don't want to use the same view. I want to create a new view, right? So what I'll do is public, and I don't really care about any key because I'm creating a whole new view. So I'll create, and this time I'll return a view. If I do that, that means this is a get request. It'll be like books create, right? That's how the books controller create function, and that means inside a book I should have a page. I should have a page which is create, and let's create this, and this page will be empty, but it will have a model which is of the book. I'm not passing anything, but I can create a page specific to a model, so that when I post back, when I put that HTML begin form, I get that object out. And I just want to create book, so I'll be just creating for the book. And I don't want to create as a partial view, so it's a whole new page. So let's add. So that's a a strongly typed view. Let's create new book. Now you can see here that I'll be using begin form because I want to take thing from UI. So using HTML dot begin form. If I don't pass anything in the begin form, anything like I put it blank. So that means I am, because it knows that you are inside a book controller and you are inside a create HTML. So I will be hitting back a create action again with HTTP post. So that's like a default constraint, a default thing in HTML begin form.
Okay, that means you won't show any error.
It won't show any error. It knows that. In that case, you are saying that you have to go back to a default function. And instead HTML begin form, I have to create a form. So let's little bit go through again via Bootstrap, because it'll help you to know how to design those forms in a much better way. So this is the format of Bootstrap. So I can create div class form group and something like that. So I'll do the same thing. I'll create a div. It says div, yeah, div class. This time I'll use form group. Those classes are being provided to me by default because framework by default loads Bootstrap for better use. And then I can create a label for. So for this I can use. So this is the view of this thing. I want to use the same thing. I can create label for using my HTML helper. So HTML label for, and I want, because I'm having this model on top. So my model knows how to work around that. So model done. I want to create a model. I don't want to take book ID, but I definitely want to take title. So model for title, label for, and then I want to input for HTML dot. You can set Xbox for, but it'll be very nice if you use editor for. How editor for works is it knows a type. It knows that you are talking about int, string. So depending upon what your type is, it will create a view. It will get that box for you. If it's int, then it will automatically create a number.
Okay.
If it's string, if it's automatically created text box. So that's like a nice idea of using the editor for. So inside editor for model
Model
dot, I want to have this editor for title. Now you see there are some classes inside this, that there is something called class form control. I want to add this class form. So if you just put comma, you'll see there are multiple functions. Additional view data, string template name. There's multiple ways by which I can define few more things here inside editor for. So let's, it's just a matter of fact that you can define multiple ways, and there's a specific syntax to it. So let's try that syntax and see if it's working. So new, and this time I'll say new class, and I call it form. It was form control. Now you can think that why I'm have to go by this structure. First, because class is a strong property of C#. I can't say class here as a class because class defines a whole new class, right? It's a keyword. So I have to use @ form1. Second, I am defining in this way because my editor for is C# function. It's not a HTML tag. Otherwise, I would have written like this only.
Yeah.
But because I have to write add a class in this
@
particular editor for, I'm using this kind of format.
Mm.
Let's see if it works. Otherwise, we have to go through the functions again. That's form control. The thing is perfect for us. And this title, I made this title to be required. Remember, I made this title required. So I don't want user to put it as a blank.
Correct. Yeah.
So there is something called a helper again called validation message for. In this, I can say model dot title. And if I pass it blank, this validation message, it will give me that blank, that default validation message. Otherwise, I can add my own validation message. Let's keep it blank. And the next object is object HTML attributes. So that basically means the same thing. New class, and this time add a text danger or something. Let's verify if there's a text danger. Text danger. Yeah, there's a text danger. That means it'll come as red. And that's a validation form. So this is done for title. Similarly, we can just copy this. Then I want to create the same thing for serial number. I'll just copy it. And the next thing is author and publisher, right? Author, publisher. We don't want any validation message for them because they're not required. We definitely want a label and editor. So that's author. And that's author. And that's publisher. You see why I'm writing this razor forms, because you can start getting comfortable with HTML and new classes and all. Sometimes you want to add your own scripts, your own classes. You should need to know that.
Yeah.
And in the last div class form group, I'll be adding input type submit, and value would be save. This input type is important in a form, otherwise the value won't be post back out of this input type. And we can also add something called like this. We can also add HTML dot action link, where we can say back to books, right? And you can see it's very easy. I can just write index and books. Will take me back, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
you can just hit back the index controller again of the books. So my form looks pretty nice. Of course, it won't work because I don't still have handling of it. Let's just see how it looks on UI. I've directly opened because I've done F5 on this page. It will directly open this create as HTML as a route. So that's my UI. It looks nice. If I click on this, it should work. If I click on back to books, see I'm back to books. If I click on create book, I'm at a create section. This could be done like in a much better way by having those call wall thing.
Yeah.
So if you go back to book, let's see how this guy is creating it. So this must be defining this in a call more MD10, but that's the thing for like for you to try it out. Right now you can just see that my form is having all those attributes. You see everything is there for me to play around. I can put
Mm.
save button. Now let's quickly complete it so that one at least CUD operation you see it today. Now you know what that I have to do is I have to just create the same function again to handle it. Create, but this time I have to define it as HTTP post. So what you saw here again is you can understand this is data annotations. Same thing that the way you use on the properties is belong to the same class. Inside the create function, I should be getting a book object because I have defined my view to be, strongly typed. So when I put submit button, I should get back this book object. And then there's something that I can do now is if there's something called model state dot is valid. What this guy does is as soon as this thing is fired, if I missed out a required field, then this state becomes invalid. Otherwise, the state is valid. That's how this model state works. So if model state is valid, then only I can put this record inside the database. So what I'll do is very simple. I'll just add, because I know state is valid, and I know my DB is working, context is there on top, db dot books dot add, let this book. And you can imagine that this still won't create that new record inside my database. Because I still have to tell the context to, update those records.
Yeah.
That means db dot save changes. And after I've done this, I can just return back to my index page. Index to my books management page. But what if model state is not valid? Then that's where those validation messages will help. What I'll say is that return back the view with this book. So this will, if this is not valid, then it goes back to view. And this time it knows that you have made some mistake. So all those validation messages will be turned on. So you'll see this happening. I'll show you live with a breakpoint. It's as easy. Now I haven't even created a single insert statement, right?
Yeah.
No stored proc calls. It's just these two lines. It's going to create that and it's going to add that record and come back. Imagine me doing a DAL layer, then I would have, taken this object, added it to a sort proc query, then fire that query, then go back to result. Remember you did that in the last phone book thing. Now I have not interacted with any kind of SQL sort proc. That's the power of entity framework. So let's just miss out title. Let's add some serial number, some author, some publisher. Save button. So now in model state, you see it's not valid because that book, this author, this title is null and it is a required field.
Yeah.
And model knows that's a required field. So it will never make the states valid. So that in that case, this line will never break. Otherwise, if I would have passed it, then entity framework would have breaked, saying that you are passing a null value to not null column.
Yeah, correct.
But now it's not breaking because I'm handling it well. So what happens is it goes back to this and gets back to the view. And this time you see validation field enters into the game.
Yes.
Because I have added this validation message and I'm giving back the same view. Now the validation framework knows, this helper knows that you missed it out. So it automatically gives me that a default message. If I would have written anything different here, then I would have got a different message. I've made it blank, that's fine. And I'm added a class text changer, that's why I'm getting a red.
Yeah, good.
Right? Now let's just avoid breakpoint. You'll see it looks so clean from a user perspective. If I don't do that, don't put breakpoint. If I just miss this out and say some save, see it's so clean. Doesn't go anywhere. Even though it did a post back, go to the server, verify it, come back, but it's instantly gave me a message that you missed it out. So I'll write this book. I think it's 6 and A, B, C, D 6. And I can say author, auth, pub. Now let's put a breakpoint again. So let's do a save button now. So you can imagine that my model state is valid now,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And if I add into books, it still won't change my database.
Mm.
This is like a very important thing to a strong takeaway that you can't really play around changing the databases unless you make it save changes. It
Mm.
won't it
Mm.
won't really work. So if I as soon as do
Mm.
F10,
Mm.
now I would have get the new record. You see, it's added
Yes. Yeah.
automatically as soon as I
Mm.
add save changes.
Mm.
And I haven't written a single create. I haven't written an insert statement. I am not doing anything. Everything
Mm.
is done by Entity Framework for me, and it's pretty neat because I'm just adding in that DB set and it knows. That's why it's not using list. You see why it's not using list? Because in a DB set, it knows that those 5 records have already been inserted and there's a
Mm.
new entry coming up now.
Mm.
If I would have been using list, then that framework won't really know which is the new record now.
Mm.
Using that DB set, it mark that record to be updated. And
Mm.
I'll show you in that entity state that when I'm doing that edit operation, update operation, I'll show you that it's how it handles this. It marks those record to be updated. So if
Oh, okay.
so
Mm.
so so if you look at the DB books,
Mm.
a particular record, if I'm able to see it, you see there's a SQL query.
Mm.
That's
Ah.
that's what it creates to get it from.
So it will be in where it will be? It will be in the
It would be entity framework. So I'm not creating
entity.
it, but this is how the entity framework creates a query for me. Whenever I do a db.books, that
Okay.
means
Yeah. Yeah.
that means
Mm.
it creates
That
a
time.
query
Mm.
for me. Whenever I'm creating dbbooks.add,
So when you're doing the inner join also, it will be.
yeah, everything. It will do everything for me.
Mm. Mm.
I will show you that. I'll show you those navigation properties. I won't even have to do those inner joins. Everything is pre-filled for me.
Mm.
So now as soon as I do that, I come back, it redirects me back to the action and I'll see new record here. You see book 6 added.
Mm.
Similarly, I can
Yeah.
now add book 7,
Mm.
A, B, C, D 7 and author. I can make publisher blank and I do save and this is blank.
Mm. Mm.
But still added because this I allowed this to be null.
Mm.
And how it's working is it's adding, and you see because I'm using tables and bootstraps, so this is looks pretty neat and nice
Mm.
using
Yeah.
table and bootstraps.
Mm.
That's why
Mm.
those bootstrap classes becomes really helpful when you want
Mm.
to have some decent UI.
Mm.
It provides a very nice structure of thing to everything. That's also a good thing to play around.
Mm.
So now I have created a record. Now in the next class when we meet, I will be showing you edit, how to edit this record. Again, I won't be writing any new query.
Mm.
I won't be writing any update proc.
Mm.
I'll just use DB context.
Yeah.
I'll just do save changes again. But
Mm.
this time what I'll do is because this new record is not added, I
Mm.
will mark this new record as updated to entity framework.
Mm.
You see that I was telling you about DB set marking things.
Yeah.
So I'll go to DB set, I'll catch this record, I'll mark this record to be updated,
Ah.
and then I'll do save changes.
Okay.
So
Mm.
that's why we use DB set because that
Mm.
gives you functionality
Mm.
actually mark records. Otherwise, there's no point using this extra DB set, right? Why would I use DB set?
Mm.
Because it gives
Mm.
me those functionality to marking records and doing joins and extra operations that entity framework needs to work upon,
Ah. Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So today we have covered these basics.
Mm.
We saw inheritance overriding also, data context, data initialization. We implemented book
Mm.
management with
Mm.
entity framework and with
Mm.
this great operation.
Mm.
Tomorrow we haven't added this delete, we'll add delete also, details also.
Mm.
Then we saw this validation message editor for and class attributes. We
Yeah.
haven't
Mm.
seen routing yet, so we'll
Mm.
see that also.
Mm.
So tomorrow when we meet, tomorrow as in
Yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
so we'll look at
Mm.
these operations
Mm.
and I'll left out delete for you to handle.
Mm. Mm.
And then we will be implementing customer side also. We haven't done
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
And then we'll go to this borrowing. And when we'll go to borrowing management, you'll see the real power. You'll
Mm.
see foreign keys. You'll see all those joins automatically happening.
Ah.
Those joins you're talking about, right?
Mm.
Because in order to fetch that data, I need to do some kind of join. If you
Mm.
remember,
Yeah.
this data doesn't have book name, a
Mm.
customer name. So
Mm.
you're thinking from a join direction, right? I have to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
But entity framework provides a very neat way. It calls
Mm.
navigation properties.
Mm.
Using those, you can avoid those joins, and it'll be so nice to see. You won't even think what SQL query is
Mm.
doing at backend.
Mm.
So that's how this thing is
Mm.
mapped out. And so what you can do right now is you go back and you implement it till where I have done,
Yes. Yeah. Mm.
because it has configurations. That's why I was saying that I'll
I,
give you this homework this time,
mm.
because you have to go through lots of
Yeah,
steps.
I need to implement. Yeah, I think, and Entity Framework is more on packages, libraries, familiar, correct?
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
it's more on library side, but the thing is, it works very closely with MVC. You see, it's how it's
Mm.
interacting with
Yeah. Mm.
models. It's
Mm.
very neatly connected with MVC. That's why generally when we go with MVC courses, we have to look at entity framework. We can't really
Mm.
skip it. And
Mm.
next thing which becomes very important because of entity framework, we look at those delegates. We look at those
Mm.
link queue queries.
Mm.
We start looking the data at the C# side rather than SQL.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
somewhere down the line, you have to do some kind of link queue operation. If you're dealing with data, you
Mm.
have to do some kind of link queue operation on the C# side rather than
Mm.
SQL. So link queue is something which you really can't skip it.
Mm.